Oh, this is quite annoying. Hi. Hello. This is quite annoying. I think I may have changed the settings to only allow people, so I have to be inviting in as I go, which is really annoying. Okay. Yeah. Always a technical hiccup, I suppose. Um, okay. I'll just give it another second and for people to come in, get my notes together. Yeah. Thank you very much. I'll just let somebody else in. Sorry. Okay, my apologies for all this. It was a bit of a mess up this morning with this link. Okay, I'm not going to waste anyone's time. I'm just going to press straight ahead. A couple of things I wanted to talk about. So, first and foremost, it's kind of we're halfway through 2024, and it's kind of a good time to kind of take stock of where we're at. I posted performance this morning. The deep value returns portfolio is up 35%. The Nasdaq is up 20%, and the S&P 15. And it's interesting. Two things are interesting. First, it's interesting that the Nasdaq, the tech-heavy Nasdaq, is like just plowing ahead. I think anyone who's kind of doing stocks, you kind of know that. But the other side of the equation is that if it's not those kind of mega caps, the rest of the portfolio, has to compete against small caps, and small caps hasn't been that great. So that's some context. The second one that I think about is that I wrote this here, and this kind of just resonated with me, and I want to share with you if you've something that really kind of, just really resonated with me. So I said that stocks are like children. You want them out of your house when they're young so you can think, but when they grow up and mature, you cry for the times they were untested, unsure, and only believed in you and you in them. You know, I was writing about that when I was thinking about Giga Cloud Technologies, and there will be a time, and I know it's so difficult to believe that, but there will be a time when something like Giga Cloud will be priced at like north of 20 times forward EBITDA, and people will be like saying, this is the stock to buy. You have a business that has no debt. And everyone's like, oh, you know what? But the insider is selling like crazy. You peel that away. You look, the insider has zero compensation. Zero. Okay. So you have like no equity, no compensation of any sort. Okay. Firstly. Secondly, they don't get cash payment as a salary. Thirdly, they've been with the business since 2006. So if you're not gonna sell any shares in your business, then why be a public equity? Why take all that hassle? Might as well just be a privately owned business. I mean, this is common sense. Yet people are like, oh my god, and the more the people kind of freak out about it, the more that the kind of not only social media, but like it just becomes a narrative that kind of unfolds on itself. And I find it, and I've been through these cycles, and I know without a doubt that things look a certain way for such a long time, and then all of a sudden, like it changes, and then it changes, and all of a sudden, it kind of accelerates that share price, and everyone's like, oh, now it makes sense. Now is the story is better. Now I've got more confidence in this management team, and I know from experience that this may seem hard to believe, but honestly, the share price does follow that increasing free cash flow. And the more the people come to expect that free cash flow to increase, the higher premium the people want to put in that stock. So I was, I spent a lot of time putting out my thoughts on investing, and someone said this to me, and I have kind of coined it as my tip, but it's not my tip. Someone gave this to me. And the best tip that I think when it comes to investing is that you should pretend that you have already reached your destination. You're like, whether that's a million or whatever, you've reached that point, and then you kind of working backwards to invest from that point. Because if you have a large amount of money, if you've earned it, you know the hardship that it takes to get there. Once you think about that hardship, I'm talking serious. Like, let's just be honest, right? You're talking blood, sweat, tears. Like, it's just so serious, because if you've earned that money yourself, not just your mama and dada gave it to you, if you kind of earn that money, you know how difficult it is. You're not going back to square zero. It's like Charlie used to say, I'm a billionaire. I've made it. They don't tell you that you have to become a billionaire 4 times. You just get a billionaire, you keep that money. And that's how you should think. And once I got that like cemented in my mind, it became a lot easier. Then I kind of became a much better investor, because I wasn't trying to be somebody else. And there's always going to be somebody that's having a better year than you. And you just have to forget about that. You are playing your game to the best of your abilities. And you have to do this in a manner that allows you as a person to grow alongside it. So I mentioned this last week in passing. I read a lot of Vaclav Smil's books, and it is because I'm a big investor in not big, but I'm a large portion of my portfolio is in Uranium Energy Corp, and I kind of went on this journey to understand the whole energy cycle. And once you understand that, and you see all the confluence of different politicians and decarbonization on one side, and you see the people say, oh, forget Russia, and people just kind of throw out these buzzwords without actually understanding that we need all of those sources to run all of our technology. On top of my fridge, out of use, there are 3 laptops, 2 mobile phones. That's just not in use. That's just literally dead there. Everyone has tons of gadgets. And that, when you plug that into a wall, it comes from somewhere. Your electric car, whatever, it comes from somewhere. And it's important to understand these kind of things. So take the opportunity to grow as an investor. So that's the first thing that I want to talk about. This is a journey that I think that what helps, and I recommend this, have somebody that you can discuss with and say, these are the targets that I want to reach by this period. So, for example, I wrote on the side of my fridge, you can see the fridge is a big thing in our household, and I wrote inside of my fridge how much capital I wanted to get to by 2026. So it's there, signed myself, undersigned by my wife, and so that you are kind of accountable to reach that target, so that you don't go and do stupid things. Because a lot of investing is just avoiding like stupid things. Like, everyone's like, oh, when the market's like particularly like moving higher, everyone's like, oh, options, and people like do silly things. But if you just stop a few of those stupid things per year, and the following year you try and do a few less stupid things, fewer, it really makes a difference over time. So that's my first tip. So I'm going to go through 5 that I want to talk about. Alongside this is the idea that you can control stuff. You can't control the market. No one can control the market. And people say, oh, Michael, what's this price target for this? And I have no idea. I haven't got a clue. I say what I think sounds reasonable at a time. And I say to myself, for example, let's say AppLovin or whatever, like I said, okay, this is what I think is an appropriate point that the risk reward is slightly skewed off me. So I think about that a lot, right? So there is a point in time where the risk reward is quite attractive and you can go, and it's like, okay, we can go with this. But there's a point where it's kind of 50-50. It can kind of go higher and like have a few more, a quarter or another year of kind of going higher, or it can kind of just, round trip back down. Now, you are not going to get out of the top. Like, just, this is like complete BS. You can't feel how the stock is going to react. Like, it will go like so quickly. There's no like, oh, I'm going to get out, or I put my stop loss, or all this kind of stuff. I find that this idea of control is nonsense. So when someone says to me, what is a reasonable price target? I'm thinking about, okay, the risk reward there is not that great at that point. And I'm thinking myself that there's always two options when you're in that situation. The easiest option in the world is to remember cash is like oxygen. No one cares about that, but when things hit the fan, you want to have some cash. That's the first thing. This is the easiest thing to go to. The second step to go to is to think about, okay, maybe there's another position in the portfolio that could take some fresh capital. So those are two very viable options. Now, there's that quote: you can either sell into strength or be a forced seller, and exit when all the momentum is gone. So you have to come to investing with the idea that it's always about odds in your favor or not. So sorry, someone's kind of talking. 1 second. Okay. So it's important when investing to know that you have to have some sense of the valuation, but you have to recognize and be okay with, once you sell, to see that stock continuing to move forward, and you that's going to be fine. The game is not to get out of the top. The game is to exit your position with a reasonable return over a reasonable time. So it's not about trying to always, be the smartest person in the room. Oh, I got in Tesla at this price and I got out at that price. That's, that's for amateurs. So the next point I want to talk about, kind of along this path again, it's like, it's not about trying to time this market and say, oh, is now going to be a good time, or people say about the debt ceiling, or for as long as I've been investing, there's every other week there's some kind of bad news about something. There's always bad news, man, and you can't be an investor with that. You have to put, I've said this before, but put some cash into your bank account that you can withstand about like a year or two, and once you have that cash, work hard with your family to save so that you can continue to invest. That's really the game. And it becomes like it becomes like, you can be quite competitive with this, and you try and say, okay, I need to put away, I say to my sister, she's younger than me, I say to my sister, okay, try and save £200 each month, and try and buy some stocks. And even if on that month there isn't enough in your pot to buy a share of something, even if there isn't enough, don't kind of like say, oh, I'm not going to save that month. Still work at it, because it really makes a tremendous difference, this attitude of saving. And my final point that I want to talk about is that, the multiple, so my holding period is generally about 12 to 18 months. I'm not a fan of doing it longer than that, because if it's longer than that, generally speaking, I didn't get my thesis right. And I want to detach myself from that and reassess it at some point later. So sometimes, you know, I'm investing, like I really was very passionate about GitLab, and I kind of say, okay, it didn't really work out. Maybe I wait 2 quarters and I'll say, okay, you know what? It's not working the way I thought. I come out, I wait 6 months, and I'll see how it goes. I did this with PDD. I did this with Palente back in the day. So, once you remove the entrenchment that you have towards a stock, it alleviates your mind, and that's really powerful. And you can do so much better for yourself when you just sold that and you kind of, okay, I've held this stock for like a year and a half or whatever. It didn't work out, and that's liberating to admit that. Okay, so this kind of like little bonus thing that I wanted to talk about that a lot of people have written to me about recently is that everyone is looking towards the earnings season as a catalyst to move the share price higher. I have found, in my experience, that stocks don't move on earnings. Stocks move over time, okay? So there are sometimes there's earnings, and the earnings look, I'm like, this is amazing. I'm like, this is going to work out so well. And the share price goes down. I'll talk about a stock that everybody knows, Meta. So Meta results came out on that day, that morning. My goodness, the share price was down 20%. I was like, these mega caps blowing up 20%. I was like, I thought this was for penny stocks. And, nothing really has changed. But now, share prices come back up and up and up and up and up. And nothing has changed. No new results or whatever. It's just time. And my best, way of thinking about it is investing is difficult, but a lot of the difficulty with investing is self-imposed, that we try, we force things to happen. So an example here would be, okay, share price is coming down. I'm going to be aggressive. I'm going to buy the dip on this because it was higher before, and therefore the market is wrong. This is an unjustified sell-off, and you expect it to come back up simply because you bought, and you kind of get very emotionally tied up with it. And stocks are like a bit like putting a kettle on. The water just doesn't boil when you're watching it. When you just kind of let it sit there, things seem to happen. So that's all I wanted to say for today. There's some few people on the call. Maybe you guys want to ask a question. I don't want to kind of single out anyone, but maybe somebody wants to kind of ask some questions. If not, I will pick on somebody because there's a name here that I haven't seen before. So yeah. Please, hi.
Good morning. I listened to just what you said, and you're long term in the market, and you're not trying to catch the dips and that kind of thing. And I know you do your own research. Do you ever listen to someone else? So, for example, there's a guy that's popular here in America. His name's Tom Lee, and he seems to pick when the market, the reasons are like, for example, to stay bullish because there's this money on this sideline, and he's got all these reasons. It seems like he's extremely smart. Seems like he's fairly accurate. Do you ever listen to a Tom Lee or someone else to help you, or you just ignore that and call that noise?
Yeah, so George, hi, good morning. Nice to see you, man. Always a pleasure. Always feel really honored to see you.
Likewise.
Thank you for coming. So I don't listen to anyone because 2 reasons. First, I'm very egotistic and I'm very competitive. I've got a big ego, and I'll just be honest, I don't. Secondly, you don't know when Tom Lee is making a movement in a position or not. You don't know really, he can say something, but what he's doing can be different. And I don't want to be in that position where I'm tied up to Mr. Tom Lee. So, and what I'll say to you as well, George, is you try and be more independent in your thinking and you refine that strategy, that's much more valuable to you. You know, Tom Lee can get hit by a car, and you know, things happen. But investing is a bit like life. If you do it properly, it can be a real fun. And the most important thing is to be reflective, you know, be critical in your observations. Don't take things at face value. And you know, I'm really guilty of that because my wife, you know, my daughter was saying that I have no critical thinking. But try to. I've said this before, but I think it's so powerful. I want to share it again because it's so powerful and it's so simple. And like the best things in life, it's free. Keep a journal of the investment failures you've had. It can just be a few lines, man. But this, oh my God, this thing is worth gold. You just write down, like, okay, I bought this, it didn't work out, and just like a little few lines why it didn't work out. Oh, and this is like so powerful because you will see repeats, and you just try, you know, over time to do a few less of those repeats and a few less of those journal entries. And this is something that I found just really makes a difference. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, Michael. I really appreciate your input here. And I think Meta was a great example too of like maybe not timing the market, but noticing when things are not changing, but then the stock price changes. Because like I was like just reviewing, and you had made that call to, you know, add additional Meta right around like April 25th, 26th, something like that. That was when it dropped that 10 to 20%. And then, like you said, within 2.5 months, it's back up to 520. So it's like maybe not like necessarily timing the market, but noticing maybe when those discrepancies are there and there's like no indication why, like I said, that dropped, but it was information that you're like, oh, well, okay, I can take advantage of this. Is that kind of what you were thinking, or was it just like, how did you go about that?
So I'll be honest with you. So I like to keep my portfolio circling. I don't like to have stocks in the portfolio for too long. So I believe that if I can say, okay, people buy this now, when I feel, okay, I will exit this after about, let's say, 30 or 40%. So I kind of like make a kind of pretend last call kind of thing. This is like last call at the bar. It's like last call. I think that this is, you know, as far as I'm going to take it. And I'm trying to eye up that exit point. That's when I'm kind of more aggressive with saying kind of buy. So that's really what I was trying to think of. Kind of like I'm taking it, I'm thinking more of my exit. It wasn't so much about being price sensitive. I know, like, just being honest, okay?
I appreciate that.
But also, you know, for example, with Palantir, I've barely even written about it, man. It's like, oh, it's $26. I've told everyone 30, I'm out. So, you know, I'm not wanting to say now buy because I'm going to exit it soon. Some kind of like, okay, you know, I don't need to push that as aggressively. But when I see something that I'm like, okay, I'm in. Like for example, with Sentinel-1, when it was about last week, I think it was, the week before now. It was at $19. I'm like, okay, this is it, man. Like, come hell or high water, this is going to work out for me because I just felt, okay, everything is lining up here. So that in that instance, I was like really price sensitive. I was like, no, you can't take this one from me. I got this one, even though I fully admit that I've been peddling this stock for a while, and the last 2 quarters, on the back of each quarter, the share price was down between 20 to 23% on each occasion. But I'm like, okay, this really makes sense to me because I can see that becoming so profitable. So on that occasion, I was quite price sensitive. But generally speaking, I'm trying to think, okay, this is like the last call that is going to be that attractive. And I don't want to kind of continue kind of with this one. So I think it's really important to, you know, recycle the portfolio, and that works as your margin of safety, okay? Because you get rid of something that kind of a bit more exuberantly priced, perhaps Palantir, and you kind of get something that's a bit cheaper there, and that kind of adds a bit of margin of safety, so that even when you kind of go for a market sell-off, it should in theory be a little bit cheaper, and you kind of you can navigate that slightly better. But of course, listen, and the other side of it is that I've been through enough cycles to know that just because something is cheap, it's not immune to an aggressive sell-off. I know that, okay? So when the market decides to throw up on an idea, even if it's really cheap, even if it's the cheapest in the sector, the market will throw up, okay? It doesn't matter. And for example, you have to be able to disregard people's other opinions as well. So for example, I'll just mention Palantir again, because it's just a stock that people write about so often, and I read about it quite a bit. And I just, it's rather than talking about something like LifeMD that perhaps not everyone knows about, it's just something that people know about. So when the share price is coming down, analysts is just like, oh, this is gonna throw up. Stock-based compensation. People just going on and on and on, like the three letters SBC, and that's all. There's the debt for their intelligence. The share price going up is like, oh my God, this is going to take over planet Earth. So you have to disregard that, and you have to be quite critical not to overstay. It feels so warm. Oh my God, it feels so wonderful when you own a stock, it goes into earnings and it pops, and it's like, you're a hero. But I know you can't stay. You can't stay. You cannot. And you have to be comfortable. I'm not going to pretend that it bothers me, but kind of find it interesting that, when even subscribers, for example, when I sold Broadcom, and then Broadcom has done quite well recently. People are like, oh, I don't understand how you'd possibly be selling now. It's like, this is like, and I'm like, yeah, but, I'm thinking very much of the odds and trying to explain to the person that it's not a popularity contest where you're like the most popular person because you own the stock that everyone owns at the moment. You're just trying to buy low and sell high, and it's difficult investing, and you have to be comfortable with that. And I kind of waffled on. I apologize for that. Sorry.
No, that's great. I really appreciate it, and I think that goes to your point of like very few companies can grow 20 to 30%.
Yeah,
several
absolutely.
Years. So
I couldn't agree more.
What is Broadcom going to look like? Yeah.
And, it's so cyclical. These things are so cyclical. And there's a moment in time where the dead companies like Groupon can be up like 200% this year, like in the past 12 months. Like, what? Like, that probably puts NVIDIA to shame. And so these things are cyclical. And there are times when, we believe that these trends are secular and lasting, but they're not. Very few businesses are going to be around for 30 years. Very few businesses, particularly nowadays with technology, things get disrupted so quickly that, it's difficult to extrapolate too aggressively, although people want to extrapolate it aggressively. So, it's a very tough business. It's really, really tough. I think that a person needs to be patient with investing, and you need to understand that you're not going to get all the shots right. And I think that trying to position your portfolio in a way that you don't allow your emotions to be the driving factor, I think that's key. I've tried my best to do this with being like kind of equally weighted, but I noticed, for example, that my equally weighted portfolio, so I got the hypothetical portfolio, the equally weighted was up about 40%, whereas my own that I'm managing was only up 35%. So again, it shows that having that, equally weighted portfolio has actually done better than me. even though I'm like the guy that's like moving the things around. But just that's that's the game. Some positions kind of grow large, and for example, I bought a Money Lion, and that did really, really well for me. But that's a massive position. But that for 2024, that share price has been flat as a pancake. But it's a massive position, right? So I'm suffering with that. Same with GigaCloud. GigaCloud has done well for me. It's a large position. So it kind of, if that's just going sideways for a long period of time, it drags. It causes a drag. So actually having the equally weighted portfolio does better than the owner operated. Yeah, so it's interesting.
No, that's a good insight. Appreciate you sharing.
Anyone else have any questions?
Mike, Sweet here. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi. Pleasure to finally meet you.
Yeah, thank you. So I think you already answered my question. So I joined your DVR quite, I think, late this year. So I took a position on LFMD, which is I think down 30%. I actually wanted to
Which position?
buy
Repeat which position?
LFMD.
Yeah.
So I actually wanted to buy the dips. So I'm just a little confused to take your view whether should I at least buy a little bit or should I just wait as you said patiently and not bother much about the dips buying in my price tag and stuff. I mean, do you want to have any opinion on that?
So the way that I've tried my best, this is about LifeMD, the way that I've tried my best to do stuff is put a cap of 5% on each position. And that is a safety mechanism against myself. Because I know, for example, just being honest with you, I'm very passionate about this business and I'm letting my ego again. So I think about the ego. I say, okay, I got this. The market is wrong. But I know from experience that if I'm right, I'll be rewarded. And if I'm wrong, which is possible, I will be killed. So I need to protect myself. So that's why I only put the 5%, and I'm not okay. I'm not like having to react. And that's the thing that a lot of investors would do well to understand, that you don't have to react. And a lot of things happen in the market in a 3-month period. And it seems sometimes that it's impossible. That seems like unbelievable. But in 3 months, things can change quite dramatically. And I've seen that. And in 6 months, it's like a whole different story. Like, it's a whole different story. So I think that, don't try to kind of go too aggressively. Put a cap, and move on to something else. You will see that things, when time is right, things go really, really quickly. And I'll just add one more thing. Now, I feel that with a more followed business, people try and forecast slightly further out. The market doesn't forecast very far as a whole, like, about 6 months, but people kind of have more conviction further out than 6 months if it's a well-followed business. But if it's kind of a small business, people like want to see the results first. So it's a show me story. And only after the show me has showed up, the people are willing to buy the narrative. So I'm not going to say that underfollowed means undervalued. That is not true. But if you are selective and you just pick out a few different ideas here and there, sometimes you get really nicely rewarded in certain positions. But that's not to say that, the small caps is easy. Small caps is brutal. And those stocks can blow up 20% with no news. And you'll be searching around on Twitter, whatever, and there'll be no news, and the stock is down, and you have no idea. But you have to be comfortable with that. And again, just repeat myself, putting that cap on how much you deploy, I think that's helpful.
Okay, thanks. That helps.
Do you have any other questions, anyone? Well, guys, thank you so much. I'm not here for 2 weeks.
Thank you,
I'm really appreciate you guys coming out. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a nice afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.